Hello. Welcome to the Lawrence Arts Center, our virtual gallery talk with our guest artists today, Aaron Hughes and Karim Wasfi. I'm coming to you from Lawrence, Kansas, where we have an exhibit up right now that these two gentlemen are gonna elaborate on. They're collaborators in this project. The exhibit's been up at the Lawrence Arts Center for probably a solid month or so, and it's going to run through August 15th or 14th here at the Lawrence Arts Center. And as for all of our exhibits, it's free and open to the public. This project that Aaron and Karim are going to share with you all about. Aaron had approached me about this project coming to the Lawrence Arts Center, and it was a really moving and compelling project that, upon looking at the images and reading more about it, seemed like something that was important to share, not only with this community, but, and Aaron will elaborate hopefully more about where this project has been and where it might go, down the line. But we're really, really proud to have it here. And so thank you all for tuning in. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in and we'll hopefully get to those. But we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Aaron Hughes is coming to us from Chicago area. Hey, Aaron, great to see you again.
I'm honored to be here.
And Karim Wasfi is coming to us from Baghdad. And we're just meeting today for the first time. Karim, it's very nice to see you.
Thank you very much, Ben. Likewise, it's great to be with you guys.
So Aaron, I'm going to start off with you. We've worked together in the past with a totally separate project, but you strike me as a constant collaborator and troublemaker, as you say. But talk to me about the origins of this project that you've initiated.
Sure. Well, but first I just want to thank you, Ben, for hosting Poetry Despite, Music Despite the Eternal War Requiem, and thank Marlo for helping with all this tech, getting us all together, and everybody at the Lawrence Arts Center for all the support to make this exhibition and program possible. It's really amazing and generous. The Poetry Despite, Music Despite Eternal War Requiem was awarded the Baltic Artist Award. It's out of the Baltic Center in Gateshead, UK, in the United Kingdom. And when I first was awarded the prize, I immediately felt like I didn't deserve it, but there was this other artist I knew that was making this beautiful, powerful, performative work in the midst of sites of bombings throughout Iraq. And when I first learned about Maestro Wasfi's performances in these sites of violence, and his solo improvised cello performances just echoed out and binded the people there through the sound waves and transformed this space of violence into a space of beauty, I couldn't help but just be so moved and long to connect with him. And so I immediately reached out and asked if he might be interested in collaborating. And since the exhibition began in the UK, I wanted to pull in the history. And at the time, and I still feel this way, that it seemed more and more like the wars and violence in the world was ever-ending. And despite that ever-ending violence, there were artists, poets, musicians playing music, writing poetry, pushing back against all that. And I wanted to lift up that history and connect it to from World War I all the way through the current context, and pull in the history of the original War Requiem produced, and that was based on Wilfred Owen's poems. And I wanted to pull in from the history of woodblock prints by Kathy Kolowitz, and kind of like build up this body of work that was pulling from that history, but connecting to me, the trench poets of today. And to me, Karim's work is like that. And I just want to, within that, I want to acknowledge all the other people that contributed to this project. So in addition to the cello performances by Maestro Wasfi, there was the hip hop contributions by the Syrian Kings, which is Ahmed and Hussein, with contributions from Jowan, Ali, and Muhammad. And they were supported by Gem Arts, which has music leaders Izzy Finch and Powal Jadowski. And then there was poetry supported and contributed by Carlos Serra, Dunya Mikhail, Kevin Basil, and myself. And then Nate Sandberg helped with all the sound design of the completed audio tracks. And I was honored to work with master printer Paul Maloney on the woodblock prints, and his team, which included Paul Keechlin, Kanani Miyamoto, Harry Schneider, Skylar Demiris, Lauren Gooding, and Russell Wood. So there was a whole lot of people contributing to make this project happen.
Thank you you got right into it. So let's sort of step back, and for those who might be watching this who aren't able to come into the space and spend time with, I think there are 9 or 10 large woodblock prints, and then cello, and some other ephemera books and photographs that I believe you had taken, Aaron. Sort of maybe walk through some of the imagery, the wood blocks specifically, and what's going on there with those.
Well, each woodblock is a response to one of Wilfred Owen original poems contributed to the original War Requiem, interpreted within the current context. And you'll notice in the first woodblock that there are these silhouettes of a church arches, and that's because the first War Requiem was performed in the Coventry Cathedral that was destroyed during World War II. And I wanted to connect this kind of endless history and legacy of the violence. And then the next piece, was based on, each of the woodblocks is also based on a movement within the so the way the War Requiem is based off of a Latin mass. And so the Dies Irae is the next movement, but I was looking at a permanent star. And then the next piece, Dies Irae, the next war, references the everything that has happened in Fallujah, and the some amazing writing by different Iraqi writers. And then the last Dies Irae piece, Sonnet on Seeing a Piece of Our Artillery Brought into Action, and the ordinances there are reflecting the ordinances that have been collected in Yemen and the bombardment of Yemen. And so, like, looking at all these histories and how they are present in this moment today. And, the important thing to me was, my job, I felt, was to represent some of that eternal violence. And Karim and the poets were coming in to resist that and be the transition away from that endless violence.
Mm. So in a sense, sort of the imagery that appears in the prints, or sort of in the background of the poems and the music.
Exactly. Just as, Karim has used his music to push against those spaces in Iraq, it was like pushing against these woodblock prints.
I see. Yeah. Well, I've had the blessing of having this work in the building for the last month or so, and we have a record player in the space, and people can come in and they can sit down and listen at their leisure. This four sides. It's a double album. There it is. And so it's quite moving is not the right word. It is moving, but moving is an easy word to say. It's such beautifully made, but surrounded by some pretty heavy and rather dark imagery in some cases. That conflict there is one that I've really enjoyed sort of working through as a viewer, I guess. And is that important to you, that people have that, but both of those elements are essential, the record and the prints?
Yeah, it's the contradictions and the power. I think the title says it all. It's the music despite, the poetry despite. It's acknowledgement of the violence, but there's the people finding ways to create beauty through that violence, and I think that humanity transcends and transforms those spaces, and it doesn't it doesn't erase what's happened. It doesn't change the fact that all of these things continue to happen. It doesn't change the power dynamics, but it is this form of human resistance that transforms, one's, I guess, I don't know, maybe it transforms the people's relationship to those spaces and binds people in a different way to them. It creates meaning out of the trauma is really the intention.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you all did that. So speaking of the beautiful music that accompanies and really, to me, drives the experience being in this space, maybe talk a little bit about Karim and how you got connected and how maybe this developed, this collaboration developed.
Well,
thank you again, Aaron. Thank you, Ben, and I would like to thank the Center again for sharing our experience and Aaron's beautiful work. It's a sort of a beauty despite as well. There's a wide range, a wide spectrum of Urania's strange, grotesque impact of many different ways of improvised killings. And we have seen those through wars and political instability and for different reasons, but the results were usually within the same structure of with the same path, destruction and increasingly divisive negative energy and toxicity, which we chose to battle against. Now, ironically, some of Aaron's lovely, powerful paintings I have seen in reality. I have seen what happened in Fallujah. I've seen what happened in other parts of his paintings. I've seen even real people whom he had, he drew in these paintings in a way that had manifested a striking, powerful message also of connectivity. Now, we aim towards a higher level of interdependence and connectivity that has an innate need for it. Whether it's our times that we're living now with the pandemic and everything else, or what we have been witnessing and then remained alive for reasons sometimes that we even doubt. So beauty despite, hence poetry and music despite, and it's this moment of retrocausality that we might create, maybe trying to reshape even the past, and through a future that we try to structure through our art and our approach to life, as opposed to the inevitability of death. So we do realize death is inevitable, but my message, one of my messages, was also focusing on this transformative, immersive experience in which you have more respect for life, civility, and the transformative transcendence beyond the obstacles of the improvised many different ways of death that we know of, through beauty and through music, in particular, and arts in general, towards this higher level of consciousness and awareness, and experiencing beauty in its best form, which also involves connectivity and interdependence beyond creed, color, gender, political belief, faith, whatever you name it. We have more reasons to connect than more reasons to be disconnected around the globe, with or without technology. And that brings us to the other reason, in which I have had strong belief in Aaron's approach. We both have lived some of what we have been manifesting and sharing in Iraq and other parts of the world. And Aaron has seen it from his perspective, circumstantial perspective. I have likewise, being there during the war. And it was not the first war I've witnessed. I've witnessed 1980 through 88, and then 1991, and then after 2004, and so forth and so on. So I do believe in civility. I do believe also that history repeats itself and mistakes are committed over and over. But we do have a great, astonishing, positive energy to share with everyone and to believe in as the core, at the level of the molecule of who we are as species, at the core of who we are within the syntax of our potentials as humans or as species, and to share this with everyone. Then people have a choice to respect and identify that or not, or to experience it and then to live it or not. But we do have an obligation and a responsibility towards the better world that we should live. And that we manifest through arts and music in particular.
That was beautiful. Well, Karim, you referred to the shared experience that the two of you have.
Yes.
Aaron, you're a veteran and spent time in that part of the world, and Karim has lived there, I'm assuming, your whole life. Do you think about who needs to experience this kind of a piece, this kind of a show? Who's the intended audience? Either of you.
Everyone.
Yeah.
And it's not limited to the victims, but the wide range of spectrum also involves from politicians to the populace. And this is a message I think is and shall always be stronger than the whatever reasons for death through killings and through wars and battles that is there. So it is not a weak message of peace. Peace is also profitable. When I say profitable, sometimes it gets misinterpreted as because people acquaint that idea of profiteering to war and political instability and how that is related to things that we're trying to prevent. But I think everyone is the audience. This is not limited to the US or Iraq. I had promised Aaron and everyone else to, at some point, be able to exhibit his works in Mosul, where we have defied ISIS. And then the aftermath was giving 14 concerts in areas where people had witnessed atrocities that I cannot even share here. They're so graphic. So basically, everyone is the audience, man. Everyone is it's an awakening, yet it's an empowering initiative that I believe, the way I see it is this way. I don't speak for Aaron, but I think it's an empowering sense of connectivity to self as well as to others that is manifested through art. And we do believe art is for art. I'm not politicizing my music or Aaron's paintings or the poetry that we know, but we have, as I mentioned, we have an obligation for this higher level of civility that everyone needs to respect and identify and empower to identify different ways of resolving disagreements.
I can't agree more with Maestro Wasfi and his, thoughts about who this work is for, and even people that feel completely disconnected from the U.S. foreign wars, U.S. foreign engagement. We are all connected, and I think this work is about, and it's not just connected in this moment in time, but in all the histories and layers of our current world. Being able to acknowledge those histories and find ways to transform the ongoing violence through beauty, through what Maestro Wasfi was talking about this higher way of engaging with the world. You've talked, Maestro Wasfi, about like improvised killing, and you say there's all these ways that people have created to produce violence, and what are the ways that we're improvising beauty, improvising healing, improvising meaning out of those traumas. And I really strongly believe that whether it's in Lawrence, Kansas, Chicago, Illinois, Baghdad, the Gateshead, UK, wherever it is, we are all connected to this current experience of endless war and the history that is built upon. And it has moved people all over the world. It has forced migration of individuals all over the world. And so the idea that there is a place that isn't connected to this, I think, is what this exhibition is about, challenging and reminding us how we are all connected to these experiences. And that's what literally the music does, is Maestro Wasfi talks about how the actual sound waves resonate through everyone that's hearing them, and it actually is connecting people through those sound waves. And I there's something so beautiful when trauma and violence is all about alienating people, disconnecting people, and isolating people. And music and arts are about bringing people together. And I really, I think on that, if you would be willing to share some improvised cello, Maestro Wasfi, I think that everyone would be extremely honored.
Yes, please.
Sure. Now,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, this comes from a belief of the power of self, maybe beyond Maslow's pyramid. Self-recognition, self-conceptualization, and this also brings us to another point that I usually had people wondering. And I was already the chief conductor of the National Symphony Orchestra in Iraq when I chose to take my individual force and just pick my cello up and sit in the streets against car bombs and start performing. And that's one of the reasons I just wanted to share that basically it's empowering self and partially manifesting that through a solo performance, but also through connecting to self and to others through vibration and frequency and the sound of uncertainty that can turn into a tangible, certain energy field that transcends beyond even the digital world that we're living these days. So it's beyond space-time through sound, which is creation again. It brings us back to what we are and how we maintain our existence as species through vibration and frequency, and what are we connecting to? What if one day, there are lots of what ifs, what if one day there's no connectivity, there's no internet, there's no digital world, no satellites, there's a malfunction, everything gets disrupted. We would still have the ability to connect as species to sustain and maintain a life that we should be able to live despite the inevitability of death.
Yeah. Maestro, can you elaborate more on some of your background? You mentioned being the lead conductor, and now your work is taking you into sort of non-traditional situations or experiences. Talk about that transition a little bit, if you would.
Yeah. Ironically, some of this had started in Bloomington, Indiana, where I went to school for my master's for conducting and cello performance. After 91, I had moved to Cairo, Egypt, back to Cairo where I was born. And it was a unique experience, specifically after surviving two major wars between 1980 and then 1990. I had lost a scholar because of the sanctions and Kuwait situation, so on and so on. So after living that, in a couple of years in Cairo, the Cairo Opera House, and studying music and philosophy, and also working at the Opera House, and then teaching the conservatory in Cairo, I had a unique recording of the late János Starker, of one of his performances for the Kodai Sonata for cello. And this had been one of my nostalgic memoirs from Baghdad days in the early 80s, when I was the youngest musician to join the symphony orchestra. I was 14 years old and making a salary already in Baghdad with a special permission. So anyway, so ironically, I figured out that late Starker was in Bloomington, Indiana. And I had lost my chance for Moscow, but being in Egypt and meeting with late Lord Yehudi Menuhin, who was a great distinguished artist of all times, and then I realized that János Starker was in Bloomington, Indiana. And this was a surreal moment to realize that one of those records that I had way back in the late 70s and early 80s and used to listen to and enjoy, the person who was performing is still alive and he's somewhere in the States. So succinctly, I worked hard towards getting to Bloomington, and then I managed to be there in 1998. Anyway, moved to Iraq in 2004 after the invasion and after the war, and I sensed the responsibility and obligation for us to create this positive energy I was referring to. But ironically, this connectivity and interdependence I have sensed in 1998 when I was in Bloomington. There was another attack on Iraq called Desert Fox. It was a raid of bombardment for 4 days. It was then when I sensed, that enough is enough, honestly. I have lived 1980, I've lived the 1991 Kuwait issue, the destruction of Iraq, past the invasion of Kuwait and all that. We had simple dreams, we had a stable country with economy, with dreams to perform, to conduct, to fly jets. I don't know, it's simple things that people would enjoy, manufacture computers, and enjoy history and connect to spooky actions of entanglement in space, like any other normal country, I would think. But we're always interrupted by political. So in Bloomington, which is a beautiful cosmopolitan little city or town, maybe big town, I sensed this Peace to Arts initiative, that the need for it to be a connecting power, connecting people, specifically through music, and honestly to maybe manifest a sort of retrocausality to reshape what had occurred and what had been happening through things that we can change in the future. And this had led towards what had happened in Iraq. And then by 2008, I was already the chief conductor of the National Symphony Orchestra, where I grew up in the early 80s, but then initiated the Peace to Arts initiative in Iraq as a path to create a wider spectrum of energy that would connect people on positive grounds from around the globe, through sound and through arts and through civility, through education and knowledge and enlightenment, and shifting the power of arts from focusing on entertainment into including a wider impact on community and society, to include PTSD therapy, a therapeutic approach, a holistic, multifaceted approach of what art can lead to in times of war and instability, as well as times of peace and peace to be normalcy to experience. And we question what is normalcy to experience in some cases due to what we are facing. So it's this driving force, empowering, self-empowerment, and dedicating to civility and dedicating to beauty against the obstacles of death and destruction and divisive experiences that are usually linked to wars and battles and so forth.
Well, that's definitely manifested here in this project that you all have created. Aaron, can you talk about how you connected with Maestro? How'd that all work out?
Yeah, and I also, there's another core element of this is, for me, as a Iraq War veteran, I feel very accountable to the fact that the U.S. and the U.S. coalition destroyed the infrastructure of Iraq and killed hundreds of thousands of people and devastated this country over a lie. And what does it mean to, acknowledge that, to apologize for that, but not apologize for forgiveness, but to take responsibility? And to me, that is about also trying to find out ways of reparations and supporting what the Iraqi community wants and needs. And when I saw Maestro Wasfi doing his work, and his need to build this program, Peace Through Arts, I wanted to figure out how to support that, and also, my immediate focus was transforming the award I had received into his resources and resources for his work. And so I was lucky enough, I've because of this, because of my my work with Iraq Veterans Against the War, my work with activism, my work in the arts, and my continuous interest in positioning myself in solidarity with the people most impacted, I've been able to build up amazing relationships with the Iraqi community and Iraqi artists over the years. And I've always been inspired and learned so much from their work. And because of that, I reached out to that network and asked, hey, who's connected to Maestro Wasfi? Like, is there any way that someone, and a wonderful friend in London had Maestro Wasfi's email and connected us. And I, emailed about what was happening at this, at the Baltic Center for Contemporary Art. And I, asked Karim if he might want to be involved with that. And we spent a lot of hours on the phone, and it was in a very intense period of time. This was in a period of time where Maestro Wasfi was going back and forth between the United States, but was also spending a lot of time in Mosul and around Mosul right after everything had happened with ISIS, and the violence had just, the exasperation of occupation, and then another form of violence and occupation, and people living through all of this trauma again and again. And he was there trying to you were leading workshops, music workshops, and he traveling through this area that at the time was still not even all, I think, secure. It was not a safe situation, and Mosul had been devastated. The mosque there had been destroyed. The The university had been gutted. The library at the university had been destroyed. Maestro Wasfi was focused on efforts to rebuild and reconnect people and get beyond all of the divisions, that were mostly, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, we're also exasperated by our occupation. So, I think in many ways, I felt very accountable to the situation, and bringing light to his work was one part of it. And I also want to mention, Dunya Mikhail, one of the most celebrated Iraqi poets, contributed amazing work to this project, and her words and around, and also critique that I think she brings through her poetry of artwork around war, and who is it benefiting and how is it benefiting people. And, she has this amazing poem called The War Works Hard. And it talks about all the people that, from the generals to the artists and the poets, implicating her own work, that in some way have benefited from this chaos and violence. And then through that highlighting, I think she's reminding us all that, this isn't just about making beautifully aesthetic objects and beautiful sounds. It's about inviting people in to be a part of accounting and being accountable, and being accountable to our brothers and sisters on the other side of the world that we have so drastically impacted. That's what this is like a part of. And, if people are interested in that, I think, the Peace Through Arts is an amazing project to support and to lift up, because Maestro Wasfi's on the ground doing this amazing work. And so that's kind of like how we connected. And the conversations were just, they were the kind of conversations when when I decided I wanted to be an artist in the middle of my deployment. I kind of was like, I hate being involved with this destruction. I want to do something creative. That was like my belief. I dreamed of conversations over tea and coffee with people that were interested in talking and making work about how connected it all is, how connected we all are, how powerful and beautiful the world is, and how that transcends and transforms all of the violence we create. And I was having those conversations with Maestro Wasfi, and to me, like that, that's been a humbling friendship that I'm honored to have.
Wow. Well, I think I have so much respect for each of you, and how you've described your approach and your dedication to connecting. And even though a lot of this is a lot of the imagery and the background with the poems that sort of originated the prints are rooted in negative energy and all the destruction that just doesn't seem to end. I listening to each of you individually speak about that you're not stuck there. There's this ambition to find the beauty and to amplify that to anybody who wants to receive it. I think is so refreshing from my perspective to hear you all speak that way. So thank you both for your dedication and your I don't know what I'm struggling with the words, but it's delicate and it's bold at the same time, and I really it resonates with me, and I'm sure other people. And hopefully, we're about out of time for our conversation, but I really encourage people to come in and spend some time in the gallery space and sit with it and listen to the music and look at the images. There's also, I've got a record, the record is here. We have several of these available here at the Art Center, and you can listen to the wonderful poems and the music that were put together by at least these two and many other folks. And as we close, could each of you maybe talk about the future of this project, or projects that you think audiences should know about, and how they might be able to participate or engage with either of you on any of these projects?
Maestro Wasfi, you want to go first? And I'll...
Sure. When Mr. Hughes was conducting, I was in Mosul creating the 5th youth orchestra. So the reason I'm saying this is basically the foundation of what is yet to unfold positively is manifested through our modest, humble, creative approach through arts. And people can connect to this sort of energy without necessarily the feeling of sorrow always, but to have the concrete basing foundation for a better tomorrow would require us to connect and to be aware of what are the elements of our connectivity that we can empower. The reason I'm saying all this, as we speak, there are probably soon talks between both governments, the Iraqi and the American government, relevant to what sort of presence for the US forces in Iraq there will be, and the strategic SOFA, and the strategic this and the strategic that. I think people connect, no matter what politicians and governments disagree upon or agree upon. There's a higher consciousness that people, humans share, and this would be the beauty of connectivity through arts and culture between Americans and Iraqis, that would maintain and sustain a lucrative, refined way of mutual relations towards the future. So through arts, through music, through your institution, through our art, we will continue to manifest civility and create it.
I can't agree more with Maestro. And, you know, this, through these conversations with Maestro Wasfi, you know, the idea of these exhibitions in Iraq, and, you know, I hope, in 2009, I went back to Iraq as a civilian during the occupation, not as a part of the military, but as a civilian. And I have since hoped to return to Iraq and, you know, build these kind of artistic relationships, and, you know, like what Maestro Wasfi is talking about, on a different way. And I hope that the cultural centers and art centers in Baghdad and Mosul and throughout Iraq and the Middle East are able to connect with the art centers and cultural centers and museums in the United States and build those deep relationships that are so needed, because we really all do need each other. And in regards specifically to the Poetry Despite Music Despite Eternal War Requiem, you know, this is the first time the work is exhibited in the United States. I think it is, you know, the talking about war and conflict, I hate to be so crass in this, but is not in the status quo of our current discourse. And I really appreciate the you know, the work of the Lawrence Arts Center to bring this work here, despite it not being, you know, the overwhelming focus of a lot of the cultural discourse at this time. And, you know, I hope it can tour throughout the United States and throughout the world. And really, it's about this record. Anyone can purchase the record online or listen to it. It's free to listen to online on SoundCloud, on the poetrydespite.online website. So please go there, listen to the music, share it with your friends, with your family, with your community, and hopefully this work can continue moving throughout the world. And I'm sure that, Maestro Wasfi and I will be finding other ways to collaborate in the future.
Certainly.
Well, I hope so. And thank you both for this important work, sharing your thoughts and ideas on this project and what we should all be working towards. And so thank you for your time. It was great to see both of you, and be well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.